Okay then, let's talk Dan Wootton. And I'm doing this video to prove a point really, because after all I was going to say Howell Edwards then, but it's not him, it's Hugh Edwards, isn't it? But I have a lot of Hugh Edwards supporters on my channel complaining that I'm not being fair and not talking about Dan Wootton. There's a difference here between Hugh Edwards, poor Howell Edwards, whoever he is. But there's a fundamental difference between Hugh Edwards and Dan Wootton here first, before I start. The Dan Wootton story is a claim made by one man, and one man alone, and that's it. There's no evidence. Whereas the Hugh Edwards, bloody hell. Who the hell is Howell Edwards? I'm sure he's a famous Welshman, isn't he? Anyway, whereas with the Hugh Edwards story, phone numbers have been verified by his employers, the BBC, thanks to text messages he sent to his teenage interests, shall we say, which included threats, so that's that. But I'll give you the lowdown on Dan Wootton, then give you my opinion afterwards. So Dan Wootton, who is he? He is from New Zealand. He is a host on GB News here in the UK, and he is currently on holiday in New Zealand. Now, the lefty woke mob and Hugh Edwards supporters, I didn't say Howell then, so I'm alright, I'm doing okay. They're insisting he's been removed and suspended, and GB News haven't confirmed this or anything. They're not saying anything. But Dan Wootton's colleagues there are saying he is on holiday for a week. And now the allegations, there have been allegations made against Dan Wootton by a former lawyer, and they are of stalking and emotional bullying. And it's all pretty dark stuff, but like I said earlier, there's no evidence. So this former boyfriend of Dan Wootton says that Dan Wootton had unauthorised access to social media and emails without permission, which belonged to this fella. And this guy found out the email account was accessed from the then News of the World office. Now, I have a Gmail account, and you need Gmail for YouTube. I have other email accounts as well. And if any of these accounts are accessed by myself, if I log in and out, it tells me an area it was logged into. It doesn't tell you a specific building. So how would this guy know that his email was accessed from a certain building? I find that baffling. Anyway, so the former boyfriend was asked to go to New Zealand, Dan Wootton's house, to look after his cats, and then found a locked bag behind a washing machine. What was he doing behind a washing machine? Was he cleaning for him or something, or actively searching for stuff? Who knows, but it's a bit weird. I mean, I've stayed in Airbnbs before, years ago, and I didn't go hunting for stuff. In fact, I was paranoid in case there were hidden cameras, so that's that. So this guy went behind Dan Wootton's washing machine for some reason and stumbled upon a locked bag, and inside this locked bag was a hard drive. And in that hard drive was a video of one of Dan Wootton's former colleagues who used to work for the Sun newspaper. And it was basically a sex tape. And according to the transcript that came with this video, it was all blackmail. They were going to blackmail this guy on the tape having sex in order to get money out of him. And the alias used by Dan Wootton was Martin Branning. Hence, if you're on Twitter, that's why Martin Branning is trending. Now, according to this guy, Dan Wootton's former lover, former boyfriend, all sorts went on. Dan Wootton was nasty to him. So he went to the Met Police with all this, and no action was taken. And that's that. But now this guy is on Twitter. There's a long thread explaining everything, but no evidence. And that's the fundamental difference between Dan Wootton and, I was going to say Howell Gwynfryn, Hugh Edwards. And that's the fundamental difference between Howell Gwynfryn. Howell Gwynfryn, what's his name? Hugh Edwards. Now, Howell Gwynfryn is a famous Welsh guy from back in the day when I was little. I'm not sure if he's alive or not, but he has absolutely nothing to do with it, so please, no legal action. And that's the fundamental difference here. There's evidence with Hugh Edwards. The BBC have confirmed his phone number, which threatening text messages belonged to when he was conversing with his teenage interests. And all this thing about Dan Wootton is word of mouth from one guy with no evidence, nothing whatsoever. And it's basically a one-sided story, and it's trending because of who Dan Wootton is. The left hate Dan Wootton. And yes, okay, I agree, he is a bit of a sensationalist, and his putting flowers down to commemorate the death of the late Majesty the Queen was staged blatantly and quite cringy. He didn't need to do that. And here's your typical MSM guy, basically. Anything for a story, give him that. Now, if this is blackmail and Dan Wootton using the alias Martin, what's his face? Martin Branning is behind it, then he should certainly answer to it by law. But if not, if it's just a sex tape, it's adults. There's no kids involved. It's adults doing their thing. And adults doing anything which they consent to is nobody's business. Again, the difference between Hugh Edwards and Dan Wootton, there's teenagers involved with Hugh Edwards, and the Dan Wootton so-called scandal, it's all adults. So there we go. My personal opinion, could be a jilted lover who's out for revenge, or just someone out to blacken Dan Wootton's name. Who knows? But the key word here is evidence. And if this guy on Twitter who spilled the beans manages to pull out all this evidence linking it to Dan Wootton, then I take it all back, don't I? Until then, I'm not buying it. And there we go, lefties. Hope you're happy. I've done the video. I've given you my opinion. There's no evidence. There's no youngsters. So it's none of our business. And that's that. That's my video. Let me know what you think in the comments. And until the next time, Roger Trout.